I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Corte Madera Town Council. We will be meeting in person in a closed session. And can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Andrews.
Present.
Councilmember Beckman.
Here.
Councilmember Casissa.
Here.
Vice Mayor Thomas is not on at this time. Mayor Ravazio.
Yes, here. So I do have the script I'm supposed to read regarding the participation of Vice Mayor Rosa Thomas, who is not well and contagious. So she is staying home and will be joining us at our 3 meetings tonight on Zoom. So is she here? Am I supposed to do this while she's present?
She is rejoining. She had to refresh. She was logged in 10 minutes ago, she said, and she's rejoining, and she just came on right now.
Okay, so Vice Mayor Thomas notified the staff on June 17th, 2025, that she would be attending remotely today for Just Cause. Vice Mayor Thomas, can you tell me the circumstances of the Just Cause for today's teleconference participation?
Yes. I have a sickness that could be transmitted to others.
Okay. Vice Mayor Thomas, do you have anyone else over the age of 18 present at your remote location with you?
No, I do not.
Can we have a roll call conducted then to approve Vice Mayor Thomas's remote participation in this meeting?
Councilmember Andrews. Councilmember Beckman.
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa. And Mayor Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Okay, I'd like to open it up now for public comment on the closed session item. I don't see anyone in the room. Is there anyone online with their hands raised?
No attendees online with their hands raised.
Okay, so we are going to adjourn now to a closed session regarding a public employee performance evaluation. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Corte Madera Town Council to order. We're usually not late starting. It's actually 4 minutes late. We'll apologize for that. We're very excited to have such a full house tonight for such a special moment for our town. And we need to begin with a roll call. And first, I'd like Rosa to explain why she seems to be coming from us from another place. Rosa. Oh, we need volume on Rosa.
I'm here. Okay. Do you have to read your statement first, Pat?
Read it. You can just explain why you're there.
Okay. I have COVID, so I am not there tonight.
And the law says that she can be away and come in virtually on a meeting provided she has a just cause. So we all agree that that is a just cause, but we actually need to take a vote to allow Rosa to participate in the meeting this way. So if we could do that.
Councilmember Andrews.
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman.
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa. Mayor Ravazio.
Yes. And now if you could join me in a salute to the flag. That was nice. We had a wave on that one. Kind of liked it. Okay, at this point, we'll open the floor for anyone who has a public comment for something that is not on the agenda tonight. If there's something you would like to address us on, please step to the microphone. And you may need to tilt the microphone up towards your mouth a little bit. You got to get kind of close and turn it on. Always helps.
There.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I'm Don Wilberg, 13 Seminole Avenue. I'm here because we've lived here since 1978, so I've been here for a while, got some experience. I'm concerned about Corte Madera being a vibrant place and a wonderful place to be. So there are four things that I've experienced here just recently, not having to do with Corte Madera, but it has me concerned about our future. One, I walked through a town, I can't remember what it was, the downtown, and 40% of the stores were empty. Okay. That we see that all over the place with a lot of empty stores. Number two, I'm a landscape architect. I had a project up in San Rafael about 3 or 4 years ago. They were going over the Sears building, or the Sears thing in the shopping center there. My wife, Loretta, just told me that it's now going to be low-income housing, right? So I was there, and it was going to be a Costco. And because of the planning process and the restrictions that it put in, that was really not a very nice meeting, because this was the meeting before me. Costco pulled out. And now you look at that shopping center and you go, was it going to survive? It's all that, what do we got to do? Third issue. I was with a client here in Ross just a couple days ago, and they said, well, they've lived in San Anselmo forever, okay? They have new parking meters there. They've never had parking meters before. They are digital. You got to scan your thing. You got to put everything in it. And this woman said, I will never shop there again. So we need to keep those kinds of things in mind. The next sort of comment that they asked me was, well, what did the planning department tell you about just a simple gate in the front yard of their house? I said, well, I called them last week, but I haven't heard anything. So they just called me about a half an hour after I left the meeting. So it was well over a week since the planning department called me. So I've been to hundreds of meetings, and I'm concerned that our town, I see a lot of things happening in the future here, and I want us to be proactive and be positive. I know I haven't worked with the planners here. I'm sure that they are very smart, and they're planners, right? We don't want them to be restrictors. We want them to be motivated to create, to really have great ideas. Hopefully I'll be back, at the next meeting.
Good to hear from you. Thank you for coming. Thanks for coming. Okay, anybody else? Oh, I thought Amy was coming to the microphone. Okay, so nobody else in the room for open time? Is there anybody online with their hand up?
No hands raised from attendees online, and we didn't receive any emailed public comment for open time.
Okay, so before we go on to our presentation, I omitted reporting to you on our closed session. And what I want to tell you is that we have finalized what we were working on, which is sort of a revised evaluation process for our town manager. We figured out the process, and now next we'll move on and actually do the evaluation. So it's taken a little while, and people have been asking about it, so I wanted to explain that. Okay, moving on to our presentation. Is there a Mr. Robert Bundy in the room, perhaps? Do you mind standing for a few minutes over maybe at the podium? Or you could even come and stand right here in front if you want. Let's have you come and stand right here in front. Today, the town of Corte Madera would like to issue a proclamation honoring Dr. Robert Bundy as 2025 Citizen of the Year, and also give him a Lifetime Achievement Award for all he has done. And I don't want to hog the whole scene here, so we're going to let every council member read one of our very important whereases.
First, whereas Dr. Robert Bundy, originally from Memphis, Tennessee, thank you, moved to Corte Madera in 1978 and became actively involved in town's political and community life volunteering as both an activist and community helper, and whereas
Rosa, do you want to go now?
Yes, I can. Whereas for 47 years, Dr. Bundy volunteered his time week after week, nearly 2,000 weeks, lending his expertise to various committees and projects to help ensure the health and well-being of all Corte Maderans. And
Whereas Dr. Bundy was an emergency room physician who gave his expert advice and assistance to the town, which helped establish Corte Madera's first ever professional ambulance service in the 1980s. And
Whereas Dr. Bundy's, sorry. Whereas Dr. Bundy's service included more than 20 years on the Flood Control Board, over 30 years on the Beautification Committee, and more than 20 years on the Lions Club. And whereas
And whereas this proclamation could go on for many hours about the many contributions of Dr. Bundy to the town of Corte Madera, including leading the annual coastal cleanup efforts and volunteering year after year on events such as Oktoberfest and the car show, and most importantly, whereas Dr. Bundy has approached every assignment, every meeting, and every personal encounter with the same warm, gentlemanly civility and kindness. Now, therefore, let it be proclaimed that Dr. Bob Bundy is hereby awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award from the town of Corte Madera in recognition of his extraordinary generosity of time and expertise over so many years, and for embodying kindness and civility without fail. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob.
yeah,
3 minutes, right? Well, Mayor Pat, this is a great honor. The council members that voted on this and others that put my name up. I wondered why I wasn't involved in the discussion about who was going to be the Citizen of the Year. I keep mentioning Ted Myers, one of my neighbors, who the longtime groundskeeper for the Little League in Joe Wagner Field. And that didn't come up this year, and now I know why. So thank you all very much. It's so nice to have so many of my friends and neighbors here to sort of recognize this event with me and to help me celebrate it. Corte Madera really is a town of volunteerism, and it's a great town to volunteer in. There are many individuals and organizations that work hard to enhance this small town character that we all love about Corte Madera and improve the community, make things better. And for many years, we've had a town council that is receptive to that. We've also had an administration and our town manager, public works, engineering, planning that are also receptive to that. So volunteering is something that really can get things done. And it's not just being involved in things or being a gadfly, but actually coming forward with positive ideas, getting other people to work on those ideas, polish them up a bit, and then make them presentable and try to make them happen. So I think it's fortunate that I landed in Corte Madera, a town where you can make these things happen, where this town has improved, sort of blossomed because of the involvement of so many people here in this room, throughout this community, that have served on all the boards and commissions and town council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. I know it was certainly fortunate for all of us that you landed in Corte Madera. So I'm going to open it up for public comment. If anybody would like to say something about our recipient. Hello, Mr. Ravazio.
Hello, Bob Ravazio, Corte Madera, and I have known Bob, I think, since we moved here in 1990. I served many years on the council. I had the great pleasure of working with Bob Bundy on just about everything. No matter what it was in town, Bob Bundy knew about it. He was incredibly well informed about it, and I could always count on him to get a reasonable point of view and opinion. Didn't matter what it was. He always knew about it, and he was always very reasonable. Didn't matter. Bob, congratulations. You've been great. Thank you so much. It's been great working with you.
Thank you.
This tall. Hello. Okay, I just wanted to say that I am happy to be here with all the well-wishers for Bob Bundy. Bob has been a mainstay of community involvement in Corte Madera, from the Lions Club to the Flood Board to many aspects of disaster preparedness and the Corte Madera Community Foundation and many more. When we get the Intergenerational Center up and running, I'm hoping that we can find a 3D printer that will make many more Bob Bundys. Thank you.
Hello, Peter.
Okay, Bob, now you're in trouble. So by the way, there's an opening on the planning commission. You can come back to us anytime. So I'd like to see that, but I don't know that you're going to be allowed to. So, but it's been 10 years, I think, something like that since I've known you. And it's been pleasurable, whatever we're doing, biking or debating or anything. It's always been something to behold. And I hope to be as young as you are. Thank you.
Okay, last call in the audience here. Anybody else? Come on up. Do we have hands raised online? Okay.
Okay, I have nothing prepared, but this is from my heart. You know, of all the things that you have said, not only has Bob been involved in the Lions Club, but he would hand deliver invitations to the crab feed. I've lived around the corner from Bob. We moved in a year before he did, so it's been that long. And he was always Dr. Bob and always the go-to person when anybody had a medical question. Our kids grew up and knew him as Dr. Bob. He's a beloved member of, and my neighbors here reflect that. That's why we're here, because he's loved. Put up the volleyball net for the neighborhood block party. What else, you know, and that's just off the top of my head, but it's well-deserved. And thank you for recognizing it.
Thank you very much.
And many coffees for political candidates, which have been very helpful too, because we get to hear things.
Good. Okay, so bringing it back to council, would anybody like to make a comment or ask a question of our?
I'm just going to keep this brief, but I got to say, Bob, you have been a friend and a neighbor and a mentor to so many people in Corte Madera over the years, and such a dedicated public servant. And words do not do it justice, but we are so fortunate to have you as part of our community. So thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm probably a short timer because I think I've only known Bob through the Lions Club for the past less than 10 years, I think. But Bob, it's well-deserved. The Lifetime Achievement Award, Citizen of Corte Madera Award, well-deserved. I call you the stealth guy sometimes because I know like for 4th of July, all of a sudden the beer truck will show up or hot dogs are being delivered. And that's all because of you, or you're running to Total Wines to get alcohol. This is really bad. Alcohol for the Lions events. But you're running around doing all these things that people may not want to do, but you're putting the time and the effort into doing them. And a lot of times, like 4th of July, that's what makes the event. So again, congratulations and thanks for all your hard work on everything.
And
Bob, congratulations. And the one thing I've really enjoyed knowing you is whenever I have a question, I can usually ask you, and you either have the answer, or you can say, go talk to X, and that will sort of get me on the correct path. So thank you, and I'm glad you're our neighbor.
And does Rosa Thomas, our vice mayor, do you have something you'd like to say?
I certainly do. Bob, you have been a wonderful friend to me and my family. My daughters love you for their Uncle Babu. And they are, I'm so proud to be your friend and so proud of the fact that you inspired me to volunteer and get involved in the town. And that's been very rewarding. And the best part of it is working with you.
Hey, I kind of like that nickname Babu. Should we? Because there's a lot of Bobs in town, so maybe we need a Babu. So just Adam, would you like to say something?
I wasn't even planning on saying anything, but I would like to just say, I had the pleasure of working with Bob when he was on the Planning Commission for many years. Bob is known by all our staff members of somebody who approaches his comments, and he comments on a whole variety of topics for staff and issues, and is always very respectful, very thoughtful about your comments, very approachable, and just have a ton of respect for everything, all your input that you've provided staff and the way that you've worked with staff throughout the years, in my experience. So thank you. Appreciate it, Bob, and congrats.
Thank you. And just in conclusion, I don't see her here, but I talked at length with Jonna Hale, who first started volunteering with Bob back in 1978. And what she said that hasn't been said tonight is that Bob Bundy has so much determination. If he wants to see something happen, he's gonna make it happen. And he's still doing it after all these years. So anyone who wants to know how to win the Lifetime Achievement Award, you first get named Citizen of the Year, which he did in the year 2000. And then you spend the next 25 years continuing to do all of the things that got you nominated and named as Citizen of the Year. And once you get another 25 years of that under your belt, boom, it's a home run for Lifetime Achievement. Not really, but Bob, you're one of a kind. You're one of a kind. Well, you've inspired all of us, so thank you very much. And there are the staff bought cupcakes from Not Let Them Eat Cake. Nothing Bundt Cakes. So if you are here to celebrate Bob and you would like to do that, I think we moved the cakes outside because we realized the agenda is a little fuller than we thought. So we're gonna keep working, but you guys can go and celebrate Bob. So thank you all very much for coming.
Right.
Job on that, y'all. That was good. I like that everybody read. So how long is this budget gonna take? Are we officially adjourned?
No.
So we are not adjourned. So the town council is going to go ahead with our business tonight. So if you are part of the if you're part of the Babu celebration, please step out to the hallway. All right, so it looks like we can resume our meeting. Maybe close that door, Peter, if you can, on your way out. Okay, so up next is the consent calendar. The purpose of the consent calendar is to group items together which are routine or have been discussed previously and don't require further discussion. They'll be approved by a singular motion unless any member of the public wants to pull or anyone on staff wants to pull an item for discussion. Is there any request to pull an item for discussion?
4G, please.
Okay, so Jim would like to pull item 4J, approval of G, the approval of the minutes. Anything else from council, from the public? Anybody online?
No requests from attendees online, and we do not have any hands raised for anyone interested in providing public comment. And we also don't have any emailed public comment or requests from the public for the consent calendar.
Okay, so can I have a motion for items 4A through 4F
I'll
on
make
the
the motion.
consent calendar? I have a motion.
Second?
Second from Eli. Roll call.
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa, Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, as to item 4G, Jim, can you kick us off?
Yeah, I'm still dissatisfied with the level of detail in these minutes. And I know they meet the legal requirements, but they aren't very useful if 6 months down the road or 6 years down the road, you want to go back and figure out what the rationale was for making various decisions. And telling, and so it's sort of like at the very minimum, I'd like to see at the end of each minute sort of a list of if the council asks staff to do certain things, we sort of get a brief list of here are the action items, whether it's I'm trying to think of an example. We want to see this, we need this information or something like that, as opposed to just, is that possible?
Is that customary use of the minutes, though, to do that for next steps? I mean, maybe within the item on the minutes, if there's a next step associated with something, could that be included?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying to balance a few things. We've had this conversation a couple of times, and just in terms of the amount of effort and work for staff to go back through and basically summarize specific actions. If there are specific things and we want to narrow it down to requests for information, that specifically, if Council Member Andrews, you would like to see added to the minutes, I think, I'm looking at Lorena. I know Lorena's the one who puts this together, and, we can discuss that and come back to you. I'd like to actually, rather than do it on the spot, just give an opportunity for Lorena and I to discuss and hear from her directly what is required in doing that, or what would be required. But I understand your point, and I know, for example, one of the items last, you had a list of items. I want to make sure you understand, though, that we do, even though they're not in here, we're certainly have received those, and we'll be following up on all the council items that are requesting additional information. So, but we'll respond if I can at the next meeting and give you a response on that. But just so I'm clear, the minutes question is about, in that specific instance, like if there's a request for information, to include those in the minutes.
Yeah, and I guess, and I'm trying to figure out how to put it, but I know various council people make comments and requests and so on during the course of a meeting, and then they disappear. Or there's there's the perception that they disappear.
Yeah.
I want to make certain that they're memorialized somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, and I do think this is, maybe we should talk about this at a separate, I don't know, meeting at some point, because I do think some of these requests by individual council members, because of perhaps the amount of work and effort it might take to respond, I do think really belong or should be a sort of a council decision about whether or not the entire council wants staff to sort of undertake X, Y, or Z. And so maybe if we can develop that sort of level of expectation that when there are individual requests, the mayor can sort of convene and
Yeah, well, I was thinking, at the very end, we sit there and say, here's the agenda for next time. You could sit there and say, here are the sort of action items that I got from today's meeting. Do you guys agree? And we could say, yeah, go, or don't go, or refine it with Councilman X or whatever.
Okay. I think I understand. And sometimes on the spot, I may not have a great answer right then, but I can come back and certainly at the next meeting and during a report or something like that and give you a response in terms of we've considered X, Y, and Z, and here's our response to those. But, is there, I know it may not be part of the agenda item too. We may be getting off topic with some of that. So I don't know how.
No, I think Amy Ackerman, town attorney, I think I'm understanding what you mean. We have to be careful, though, about council taking action on items that aren't on the agenda. So we do have the agenda item, which is where someone can request an item be put on the agenda. I also think, council members can follow up with the town manager, meet with the town manager, get information that way. So I think I'm understanding what you're saying. We just want to be careful that we're not having council make a collective decision about something that's not on the agenda.
More asking, we want more information on this or no, or whatever.
And if I could, I think getting to the bigger question that Jim's had is, long ago are the days when we had detailed, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that. But I did look it up and found that many towns our size are using AI, are using automatic minutes taking. So maybe we can look into that and see. I see Amy shaking her head no, but it's happening everywhere now. And it would be very helpful, I agree, to be able to understand why the things were
You
decided.
can use AI when you're
to summarize like the town meeting for your own use, but it can't be at this point part of official minutes without someone going through and reviewing and approving it.
And actually,
Yeah,
making sure it's
and
for
that's
real.
the difference, but AI is not
okay.
at a level yet where we don't need human review. So, but I do think, I do think, I mean, I've used it when I'm looking at a
really
video of a
helpful.
meeting. I will use.
I've been in
so
meetings
I think
where-
all of you are certainly welcome to
Yeah.
do that.
Well, I want to see a way. I think as technology evolves and as the law evolves, we will be able to do this. So let's keep an eye out for it. And when it's ready, the technology's ready, let's do it, because I think Jim is right. I mean, while you can go back and look at the video of the meeting, and it's not the same as reading the minutes about why a decision was made, who said what and why it was a 3-2 or why it was whatever. It would be really helpful to have old-fashioned minutes.
And Mayor Ravazio, if I may, so on the screen, I'm sharing the draft of the minutes from 4G that were pulled, and I created a guide that actually is entitled, its purpose is to help the public know where to access the transcriptions for the YouTube videos, which are the recordings of these meetings. And YouTube has their own AI technology that transcribes everything that's said in the meeting. As it was just mentioned, staff doesn't go through the transcription and correct every word, but you can refer to this guide to figure out how to pull up the transcriptions for all meetings. And then what I also started doing is for each item, when we get to that point in the meeting, I label at what point in the meeting that discussion is held. And then if you click on the link that is listed, like for example, this one here, sorry, the one that I just highlighted, it would take you directly to where the discussion on that presentation was held, and then the transcription will show up. And basically, that transcription is that detail that you're looking for. It's just not in this document. It's recorded in the YouTube video, the town's video archive page, and that is another record that people can refer to, and it's done for each item. So
YouTube does it, just not us.
correct.
Does that help, Jim?
Oh, yeah, a big concern I have is until I had COVID, I had pretty good hearing. And then I had COVID and it screwed up my hearing, which makes me very sensitive to acoustics. And the acoustics in this particular room aren't optimal, okay, to be nice. And if 20% of our population is over 65, and as we get more hard of hearing, it's a lot easier to just read than
Thanks, yeah.
than
Well, it sounds like if the transcript of the meeting exists on YouTube and you can read it, that sounds
Yeah.
like at least a step in the right direction.
Yes, and I've also started
Thank you for
linking the item. The link to the staff report is built into the draft minutes. And if there was a presentation that staff provided, that's added to the agenda center after the meeting is published, I also hyperlink that so that when someone's referring to the finalized published minutes, they can refer to those documents and the YouTube links and all of that. So all of the records are kind of connected in a way.
I really appreciate your initiative on this. Thank you. Very good. So with that, can we approve?
you can make a motion.
Can somebody make a motion to approve 4G?
I can make the motion.
I'll second it.
We have a vote.
I don't know if
don't need a vote?
we have a
We need-
member of the public who's raising.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Patty. Yes, do we have any comment from the meeting space?
I just wanted to say that we use Zoom for our age-friendly meetings, and all you do is when you set up the meeting, you click AI summary, or you can do it at the beginning of the meeting. And the first thing that comes up in the AI in the meeting summary is next step. So it's exactly what Jim is asking for. So it goes through the whole meeting and it uses its brain and comes up. The very first thing on there is next steps.
What'll they think of next? Okay, is there any other public comments on this particular item? And anybody online?
No hands raised from attendees online and no emailed public comment for this item. And we did have a motion and second, and I can proceed.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Mayor Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, and that takes us to our public hearing tonight. This is to review the proposed town operating budget for fiscal year 25-26 and 26-27, and provide direction to staff as appropriate. This will be a two-meeting item. And I believe for our staff report, we are going to our new finance director, Mr. Chris Petlock. Welcome, Chris.
Yeah.
Hope you're enjoying Corte Madera.
Yes, and if I can, Mayor Ravazio and council members, including, is Rosa up on the screen behind me? All right, this is a little awkward. I'm eyes on the back of my head here, but yes, I just first wanted just to say we're very excited to be here tonight to present fiscal year 25-26 and fiscal year 26-27 budget for the town of Corte Madera. I really just want to start by extending a huge thank you to Chris Petlock, our new finance director, who started really just a little over a month ago. I mean, I think it was May 12th was his day one. And so it's been a really enormous task for Chris, long days and nights and even some weekends, I understand. Really over the last month, just wrapping his head around the town's and the sanitary district's budget, as we'll talk about later. So just thank you, Chris, really impressive effort. As many know, we were, while other cities and jurisdictions were doing budget prep in March and April, we were sort of doing some of that, but really Chris sort of ramped that up exponentially in the last month. So I just wanted to say thank you there. Partly, this also is explanatory of just, we've kept a lot of the same format as we've developed in the last couple of years with Daria. And at the same time, tried to address some of the comments we've heard from council over the last year. Of course, most importantly, the two-year budget and taking the budget, extending that out 1 year, and also just trying to essentially get rid of some of the extraneous information or repetitive information in the budget, tie the goals and accomplishments back a little bit to the work plan and the strategic priorities of the council. And I think there's some more work to do there as well. But I think we're trying to put this on the right track. We certainly are looking forward to your questions and comments tonight. And we do have some time. Of course, we're going to bring this back. This is a two-meeting item, so we will be back on July 1st with council consideration for approval. And as we've done in the past, just a reminder that even if the council moves forward and approves this on July 1st, this gets looked at again every 6 months. It's amended, and we go back and revise as the numbers and information changes, and we'll be bringing that to the council for reviews at that time as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris to really get into it, and thank you, council members.
Is that all right?
Much better.
Okay, great.
Microphone.
So I'll start again. Thank you, Adam, for that introduction. I really appreciate it. And thank you, council. I appreciate your support and those of you that have taken the time to give comments and feedback to get even to here. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to jump into this. the presentation, I'm going to try not to put you to sleep. So we're going to take a fairly high level view, starting just with general fund revenues. Top line, from the staff's point of view, we've really tried to be very conservative in our outlook at each line item. We've looked at the history in each of those general accounts and tried to be very conservative as far as what we thought might happen in the next year and the following year. We do have some very good projections from our consultant HDL, and we've taken that advice as well as their economic outlook and tried to incorporate that into our forecast. Next slide, please. So without the charts or the rows of numbers, I put together just this pie chart to give a general outlook on how the proportion of our revenues add up. As you can see, sales and property tax make up about 2/3 of the town's revenue picture. And the other third is made up by various other taxes, fees, and so on. Next slide, please. So we've really taken the approach to be very conservative. Obviously, nationally and more regionally, we've heard a lot of uncertainty in outlook, whether it's purchasing, tariffs, inflation, whether the Fed's talking about what he's going to do with interest rates or not. So we've really tried to take a very conservative approach. Our consultant at HDL has projected the sales tax number for next year, and staff has just taken that and tried to go 1 year further from their projections, and again, taking a very conservative approach. From this year, what we expect this year to end, we can see that sales tax is going to come in, according to HDL, our consultant, much higher than we budgeted, but we've pulled that back for next year, just in all prudence. And again, overall, we're expecting revenues to be flat next year, and in the following year, just a very moderate 1.5% increase year over year. Next slide, please. And then again, a very high level look at our general fund expenses. Behind each one of these expense lines, there are dozens and dozens of lines, and we can talk about any one of those if we have questions, but I just wanted to, again, give you a very high level look at the town's expenses. And again, overall, we're expecting about a 4% increase between this fiscal year and next fiscal year. Other lines, we expect a little more, some not quite so aggressive. And then again, in the following year, we're again expecting a moderate increase in expenses. Generally, we're guessing we'll follow inflation with most of our expenses. Next slide, please. I put together this pie chart to just give you an idea overall, visually, what the expenses for the town look like. Again, most of those expenses are related to salaries, benefits, people that work and provide the services to the town. There are other expenses buried in each one of these lines, but overall, this is really related to the people that work here and provide the services here in town. Next slide, please. Just at a high level again, staffing levels, person count, we expect it to remain relatively static over the coming years. And then changes within the salary line are really related to turnover, scheduled increases, and steps. A big increase that the town is experiencing is related to the unfunded accrued liability from CalPERS. They didn't do so good back in 2021 fiscal year, and we're really seeing that now. This town is really seeing that now. Next slide, please. And again, the police and fire contracts, they were just negotiated. We plugged those in for next year, and we're assuming a similar increase in the following year. Next slide, please. Next, I wanted to talk about surplus, transfers, and reserves. We have built this budget for the town to have surplus in the next 2 years. Next slide, please. And again, revenues at the top, all the inflows minus the expenses we've projected in the next fiscal year. We're expecting about a $1.9 million surplus, and then the out year just under $1 million if all goes as planned. Next slide, please. So again, we're budgeting for surplus, and so from those surpluses, we're proposing that the town transfer some of that surplus to the town capital fund and the equipment fund to invest in future assets over the coming years. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into our funds. Next slide, please. The town general fund reserve, another council policy, increases from 20 to 25%, or about $2 million increase in the general fund reserve over the next 2 years. Next slide, please. And all of that feeds into the capital plan. As I discussed earlier, we're recommending that the town invest in capital. So I just wanted to kind of go through the capital plan. Within the budget, we provided, the town manager and staff has put together a 5-year plan, but tonight I just wanted to focus on the next 2 years. We can get into the rest as your questions come up. But just in general, we have reoccurring capital needs of about $900,000, and then staff has identified these road maintenance projects. Next slide, please. And then here are the flood control and storm drainage projects that have been identified over the coming years within this budget cycle. Next slide, please. Then within the Parks and Recreation Fund, again, here's some other capital projects that have been identified. Next slide. The Climate Adaptation Plan. These 2 projects have been identified for the coming fiscal years. And next slide, please. And then here are some non-capital community items that have been identified. We understand that I understand that these are initiatives that the community wants to see go forward. Maybe not necessarily capital, but we want to fund these out of funds that have been designated as capital. Next slide. And then, so from this slide, we can see total, if you add all up the capital that we've identified over the next 2 years, then those non-capital items, we come to about $12 million, just under $13 million. And this is the funding that staff has identified to help fund those projects over the next 2 years. As you get into the out years, it gets a little more cloudy on what we can do, but we can work through that as time goes on. Next slide, please. And then I just wanted to walk through some of the major funds. This is the sales tax override fund. And again, many of the projects that were identified in the 5-year capital plan are funded from the sales tax override fund. At the end of year 2, again, assuming everything goes as planned, I guess I want to talk a little bit about revenue. So if you haven't seen this before, I just wanted to talk about it. At the top left, each one of these funds, we display the beginning fund balance for this particular fund. We show any revenue that might come into that fund, and then follow it through to the bottom, outflows from the particular fund, whether the fund has a surplus or deficit, and then the ending fund balance. And that just follows through from left to right. And I'd be glad to go through this in detail if you'd like. So here, if all goes as planned, again, this sales tax override fund will end with about $3.4 million balance to fund the years out from that. Next slide, please. Again, the street impact fees. Top left, we start with about $300,000. We've identified these projects over the coming years, and this fund balance again ends with about $725,000, $30,000 in the out year to fund the following year's projects. Next slide, please. Equipment and Technology Fund. This is one of the funds that staff is proposing we transfer in some of the surplus to invest in assets for the town. We have not really identified a lot of projects here, but we imagine that Public Works and other departments will have equipment that needs to be replaced over the coming years. And again, recommending that we invest here in the town's future. Next slide, please. This is the Town Capital Fund. Again, staff is recommending putting some of the surplus into this fund, about $1 million to fund town capital projects over the coming years. And you can see here's some of the projects that have been identified in the first 2 years of that 5-year capital plan. Next slide, please. Again, the gas tax fund, funding the street rehabs and some of the projects identified in that capital plan. Next slide. Park and Loo. This fund, I just wanted to demonstrate that we had spent the money for the restroom that was identified to be spent out of this fund. At this time, there's nothing sitting there. Imagine if there are more developments in this area, the town will get more parkland dedication fees and do more with that kind funds. Next slide, please. Affordable Housing Fund. Again, not a lot of activity here, but just wanted to show that this fund does have about $500,000 sitting in there waiting for something fun to do with it. Next slide, please. Grants and TAM Fund. This fund has a lot of, had a lot of activity, a lot of funds or a lot of grants going into it. We've identified just those $240,000 in the upcoming years, and staff has identified projects to be paid for with some of those funds. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Measure A Parks Fund, again, just showing the activity happening in this fund. We've identified some projects to be funded out of this fund. Next slide. The Recreation Capital Fund. Again, council funded this with about $400,000 in the current fiscal year. In the out years, we have identified some projects, and I understand that this will continue. Some of these projects will continue to be funded even further out. Next slide, please. The Shoreline Parking Fund, again, this fund has a little bit of activity going on, mostly paying off some debt. I understand that this has slowly been whittling its way down. Next one. Next slide, please. And the next one is just a maintenance fund for the same property, as I understand it. Next slide. Road maintenance and rehab, again, funding some of those additional funding going into some of those same projects that we saw in the first 2 years of that 5-year capital plan. And next one. So then the insurance fund, this used to be just labeled as a transfer out. I felt like it was a little more appropriate to put above as part of the operating capital or operating expenses of the town. We'll continue to show it as a single line as an expense, but we will continue to track the detail here. This is the Joint Powers Insurance Authority, sorry for the nomenclature, the acronym there, that the town participates in, self-funded insurance plan. So it would be good to watch this balance and see how this performs over time. Next slide, please. And then the recreation and parks. This was probably a 3-page fund here. I really condensed it down to make it simple for a display here, but I would love to do a lot more work within this fund. I think we can do some exciting things here. And next slide, please. That's really it. I wanted to go through that. I didn't want to knock you out and bore you to death with this and that. I want to hear your questions and your feedback. Dig into the details as you see fit.
Okay, thank you. That was probably one of the quickest budget presentations I've ever heard in the town of Corte Madera. So I commend that and also the layout. But questions first from the council?
Okay, this is a really dumb question. And Shoreline Parking Fund, is that the former gravel lot that we leased to? Okay, good. That's one question.
Would it help if I put some note in there, gravel lot? Would it help if I put like gravel lot in somewhere there to help identify?
It's one of these, but 8 years ago that they paved it.
Well, I've never heard it
On
called
gravel.
shoreline before. So
Right.
that's interesting because it sounds kind of like a cool
put
place
more
when you call it
detail.
shoreline. Like amphitheater. I don't know.
It's
Amphitheater.
impressive. The other thing is probably a function of your conservative assumption with forecasting, but the general fund operating surplus, I'm showing it kind of dropping down, and if you sort of mentally extend it to 27, 28, theoretically you'll be at the zero break-even level as
A lot of that change in the ending fund balance is a function of the increase from 20 to 25% of general fund expenses.
okay.
The other part I think we can all get a lot tighter on is what exactly does that mean, general fund expenses? So the idea behind a reserve is, the bottom falls out and we've got to react. And so what exactly does the town mean by bills to be paid over that time that it takes to pivot to whatever it is? I know in COVID, fees for service zeroed out. And we can talk about those kinds of things and what we might do in those, hopefully not eventualities, but in our lifetimes, those things have happened.
Fred?
Yeah, can you just talk maybe a little bit more about the sales tax and just the background and the approach? Because I know people get concerned with Macy's closing, Joann's closing, empty storefronts, auto sales potentially off, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm happy to start, and then maybe we can tag team on this one a little bit. So we do have a consultant, HDL Inc., who has been our sales tax consultant for many, many years in town of Corte Madera and serves many other municipalities and jurisdictions as well in forecasting sales tax revenues. And they really dig into the details and review actually the sales tax receipts that come into the town, work with the California CDTFA, which is the state agency, if there are any sort of anomalies with the numbers that come in to understand whether we need to do an audit or do corrections on those numbers. So they get it. This is just to say that they get very granular on this. So we use them to forecast. And so a lot of the times in what you're seeing in, for example, the current fiscal year and even the last fiscal year with respect to sales tax revenues, and you see they kind of spiked, they were pretty high. A lot of that was a correction in our favor the last two fiscal years. And so you're seeing a 5.4% drop. That is dropping partly because of the corrections that happened in our favor the prior fiscal year. But it also is acknowledging the current state of revenues from sales tax that we're seeing around the Bay Area, we're seeing in the state. They have accounted for, and we do tell them when we meet on a quarterly basis, we'll talk about what stores are closing, what stores are coming in, and they'll forecast and they'll actually, we don't report that here because it's on an individual retail basis, but they do know exactly how much money typically comes in per quarter, and they'll account for that going forward. And so that's in the numbers that we're providing here. They will say that there's obviously a variance in there. And so when we close out, for example, on this current fiscal year, we'll even have a little bit better sense. They tipped us off to some anomaly that they're looking at right now, whether it's actually correct. So, but overall, it's certainly, there's a difference between the 1% that we get and the Measure F. They factor those two a little bit differently. There's a little bit more volatility with the 1%. The Measure F is actually a little bit more stable. And so that's forecast to go down about 1.5 to 2%, I think, over the next fiscal year. And you'll see a bigger drop in the 1% over the next fiscal year. So we have, while we are seeing some store closures and we are seeing evolving land uses that are affecting our tax base, I think we've also in the last couple of years at least seen some new businesses come in that have helped actually as well, some of the sales tax revenue. So it's sort of a balancing act. We balanced it out, but we're going to have to, we're being cautious and also, of course, just listening to our consultants and how they're forecasting on the sales tax side of things.
And if I can just
else?
piggyback on that, can you just cover the TOT and what's happening with that
Sure.
too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Since
So
it's related.
yeah, so certainly, and we're shortly likely our understanding is going to be receiving an application that will affect longer term, some of one of our major hotels in town. And so we are looking out in the next 2 years, and you'll see at the 26, 27, we're forecasting a drop in TOT taxes. This doesn't happen right away, but it is, I think, an inevitability that, or I shouldn't say it's inevitable, but we are assuming at this point that we are going to start to see a turnover in one or at least one of our hotels moving forward, given the lack of really it's a demand issue. And previously, a lot of our hotels would receive overflow business from San Francisco and the tourism and conference facilities and activity that would happen in San Francisco. That, of course, has since COVID really dropped off, and we're seeing some of the effects of that for sure. And unfortunately, as I think the council knows, we really have tried through and actually got a new hotel approved for 56 Madera, which is the site of the Best Western. Those owners had every intention of moving forward with a nice brand new hotel, and it just dropped out in terms of the finances and able to build it, the construction costs, the actual rates, room rates that they could command for that facility. And they have pivoted essentially and looking to sell that to a new owner.
Thank you, Fred. You were in the.
Yeah, just have a few more. Just a couple of number ones. On the intergenerational center, it looks like we budgeted 352,000. Do you know if there's a high level breakdown on that? And I would assume, but I just want to confirm, that does not include money coming from Age Friendly?
So if you look on the capital budget, it's sort of, that's the all-in number, I believe. And we did go through this. The detailed breakdown was in the actual, I think we presented that in April when we.
It was under the non-capital community. I think he's
right. And so that's the total number. And I'm trying to remember back to the April budget analysis. And that was the broken down numbers that we did a 5-year budget for the intergenerational center. Whether that 352 included was after the a $50,000 donation from Age Friendly or not. My recollection is that it actually does not include the $50,000 donation. I'd have to confirm that, and I'm happy to confirm that, but the real detailed budget for that intergenerational center over the 5 years, we used the numbers that we brought to the council on, I think it was April 15th, which had the 5-year more detailed budget in there. So that's what we used for these numbers here.
Okay. And then sales tax, also wildfire mitigation funding, revised budget and estimated actual, it's blank, which I'm pretty sure we budgeted money for that.
We did, and I think we're going to have to take another closer look at actually how that essentially was expended in terms of the right line items and where those expenses came from, and whether we rolled that into the, I think there's a way to, we should show that monies were expended. It just didn't get rolled up into this line, I believe, Chris. Is that?
Yeah, that's my recollection too. And again, being the new guy, I probably walked right over it and didn't see it. So we'll find that and then we'll report back or include it in the next read.
Okay, thanks. I just have a couple more. On the Park and Recreation Fund, 25-26, we run a deficit of 313,000, and then 26-27 it goes up to 781,000. It more than doubles.
Yeah. So I spoke with our Park and Recreation Director today, and so out of that meeting, in the current fiscal year, the surplus is really related to sports. It went gangbusters, is my understanding, with sports.
Sorry, related to
sports registration. There might be a little bit of deferred revenue in that number. I need to untangle that, and I will untangle that before I come back. But my understanding is that really the surplus, the biggest change was within sports registration. And he wasn't, in that conversation I had, he wasn't really willing to commit that will continue in the next 2 years. I think they also, again, in that conversation, they felt like they could do a lot more with childcare and preschool activities. But again, they weren't really willing to commit to that for the next 2 years in that conversation. So for now, I think that the town should plan on subsidizing some of those activities. And as I dig deeper into things, my plan is to help the town see a little bit clearer what's going on within Recreation and Parks by program. I've kind of started those conversations. As you may be aware, I came from a Recreation and Parks district. I can really help a lot within that area. Maybe not make it pencil out, but I can help provide clarity, give council some ideas about what's happening within the Rec and Park District.
And just one last one. Even though I know you're the new guy, you've been here a month and a half. Do you feel comfortable with the budget that's presented and the numbers in here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think this budget's the good news. It might be some of the best news in the Bay Area if you've been watching what's going on. And I knew that before I came here.
That's why you can.
I mean, I do my homework. I've read years of audits and budget reports. I had a really good idea before I came here that this would be good news. So I feel and even digging into this, there was a consultant here that was here for several months. I've had several opportunities to speak with her, to the staff. And I've watched this a lot. So, yeah, I feel very good about the budget, the outlook for year 1 and 2. And I think back to Council Member Andrews' point regarding the declining fund balance, I think, we'll dial a lot of that in the coming years. But I think with prudence, you'll see that really just stabilize, and you have a lot of money in the bank, not only within the general fund reserves, but throughout the funds. You've established these reserve balances, and that's a really healthy position to be in. There's a lot of other communities in the Bay Area that would envy to be in this position.
Thanks. That's it for me. I will have comments, but thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. Few questions. So on the general fund revenue, other taxes is down like 10% between 25, 26, and 26, 27. Was wondering if you can just put a little more color to what those other taxes are and what is driving that decline.
Sure. So some of that, the town manager already related regarding the hotel occupancy tax. That was really the biggest driver there. Within the detail of the budget, and I know I didn't present that part. I really tried to stay up a little higher for you for the presentation. But within the budget detail, below paramedic tax, you'll see hotel transient tourism and so on. And with all the hotel, transient, tourism, and Chamber of Commerce, they're all related. We collect about 12%, 8% the town keeps, and 2 go to those other two. And so within that, we're really just seeing, we're projecting it to really solve.
Thank you.
So we see some more development there. I think that's fair and prudent.
Sounds good. Thank you. And then question on general fund expenditures. It's not the biggest line item, but I was just curious. Supplies are up 13% from last year's actuals, which is like $80,000. Can you just help us understand a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so that's really unfortunately a catch-all at the very high level. But within that is, let me see if I can put some more color to that. So within that is building supplies, janitorial supplies, and so on. The janitorial supplies really got moved into an outside contract, so there's a little bit of shift there. I think also some of the departments, particularly Public Works, wanted to spend more money within supplies, tools, and that kind of thing. And there was also utilities buried within that, unfortunately, and we're all seeing utilities go up.
I think we also that there's computer supplies are included as well in that category and across departments, including things such as laptops and whatnot. And so I think that's one of the items that we looked at and we said, you know what, we can again further define that as we move forward over the next 6 months and a year to break that down because it was serving as more of a catch-all per department.
That's helpful because I see that utilities is its own line item here too, but it sounds like
about that.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then a few questions about funds, just partly for my own education. So what's done with money that's socked away in these funds? Like when we put 500,000 into the equipment fund, but we're not ready to spend it yet, is that invested or?
Exactly. Any idle funds we're going to invest, and we're going to invest based upon the town's investment policy, liquidity, rate of return, safety, all at the top of mind. And yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it did. Thank you. And then in terms of organization of funds, like, so for example, you highlighted, I think, the insurance fund. Could we go back to that slide, please?
That's
I guess my kind of overarching question about funds and the organization of funds. Have you
32.
Have you reviewed and sort of formulated your own thoughts or strategy around the way we organize funds? Because, like, for example, I know we blew through a fund that had like $40,000 in it or something, and you know, maybe there's accounting reasons why that needs to be there, but I think to my head, my first thought is like, why do we have a separate fund delineated with $40,000 in it? So I guess my question is, organizationally, have you gone through the way all the funds are set up and all that, and sort of opened or closed, you know, funds in a way that you feel is most logical and most optimal, or is that something that you haven't gotten around to or don't see as a necessary task?
My first assumption is the funds were at some point established by council for some reason, so it would be beyond me to do that.
Okay.
I would come back and report something like that, and I haven't got there yet.
Sure.
I would like to establish, or the council to establish, a debt service fund. Right now, we are showing debt service within the operating section of the general fund. And that includes both the principal and interest portion. That just, certainly that we can make an argument, leave interest in there. That's fine. But the principal portion of those payments really just doesn't belong there. I think overall, we would want to show debt service in another fund. You know, we can have however many loans and showing a transfer out. And that also within that transfer section gives council an opportunity to see the kind of surplus that needs to be generated from, you know, revenue minus expenses. You come to these surpluses that need to be, some of it just needs to be done, whether it's investment in roads, capital, in participation in the insurance, joint powers insurance authority, those kinds of things give council an idea of what needs to happen within, you know, revenues coming in minus the operating. So there's work to do for sure.
Great. And I know you just got here at the very beginning of budget season, so you were thrown right into a big task and didn't have time to get to everything that you're excited to
Definitely
get to.
pencils down, and even today with the presentation, pencils down.
Yeah.
Let's get up here.
Totally.
I will say, if I can, Councilmember Beckman, just on one of those as a point that I think maybe is one that I know our prior finance director, Daria, and I were, for example, discussing the Housing Assistance Fund, which was really set up as an assistance fund after COVID. And we had talked about, you know, we should really eliminate that fund at this point. I think there was a $6,000 in it or something like that. And so that's sort of a communication that I'll have with Chris now that he's on board, and we'll probably see something like that
Perfect.
out of the budget going
Perfect.
forward.
And then what was it that you had said about the insurance fund? I think you said something to the effect of it was a line item and you've pulled it into its own fund, or vice versa.
It was listed as a transfer out. So there was a single line previously that's just said transfers out. And I think Councilman Andrews, right after we sent out the summaries before we wrote all of the staff report and so on, just said, where'd the money go? That's a great point. Where did the money go? Right. And so just that kind of drew me into the insurance and how that was, and just kind of showing how that works. And really insurance, you know, we can't do anything without workers' comp, without liability insurance and all the risk transfer that's required to operate a municipality. So it really is an operating cost, and it belongs in the operations section of the revenue minus expense. So yeah, does that answer what you?
Yeah, I think so. Did you?
Are you good?
I've got one last one here. So we saw a slide on the shoreline parking fund. It doesn't seem that appears in the actual budget. So I was just curious, where does one find such information in the budget?
So the shoreline fund, as I understand it, we're receiving some revenue, interest earnings. There's special assessments of possibly an assessment district. So there's revenue coming in that's being collected by the county and going into that fund. There's debt there. So maybe the town manager can talk a little more about what's going on.
I think it's an obscure one, but my understanding is right. This was actually not the most recent lease of property to Macerich as part of the Restoration Hardware development. It actually goes back to, I think, the in the 90s or something, when essentially the town bought the property through an assessment on the village. And so they are actually paying for it, even though the town bought it. So it's an R fund, but the money comes in as revenue to pay off the debt that actually the village has to pay for that.
Right. But my question was really just that. So we just saw a slide on the shoreline parking fund, and the word shoreline doesn't appear in our budget document. So I'm just curious where that information is.
It lives in its own little fund. It's not really part of the general fund at all.
Okay.
And I didn't include it in the actual budget document itself. Thank you. I'll make sure it gets in there.
Thank you.
My oversight.
No worries. Thank you. Appreciate it. And those are all my questions.
I'm going to go to Rosa next, but in the meantime, are there any other significant funds that are not in the budget?
There are other funds with zero balances.
Some with zero balances.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are some there with zero balances that I've come across, and I just left those out. Even like the park and loo fund, which showed a zero balance at the end. It's not my intent to leave anything out. I want to make sure we show
Okay,
all
great.
that.
Okay, Rosa, you're up.
Oh, yeah, just, pretty quickly, I had a question about the Housing Assistance Fund because it appeared that it was not being utilized. But Adam addressed that, and I guess it sounds good that there are a lot of funds and sort of things that are not necessarily categorized in a way that are easily understood that you'll be working on to clarify and to clean up. And so that's really all I have. Everybody's addressed some really, really good questions.
Okay, so I guess that brings it to me. I have just a couple questions. Just real quick answers, not looking for long explanations. What is large trash capture? And where would that be?
That I think is a flood control. That's on the flood control capital project storm? I think it's literally descriptive in the way that it's intended
When
to.
trucks start rolling down the rivers, it'll stop them from.
It's capturing
Okay.
sort of debris
Okay,
that may
good.
get into our storm drainage infrastructure. And
I pictured some new big, dump going into town park or something. So no, as long as it's not anything like that. Okay. I have big questions on how we set aside monies to plan for future development. So I'm wondering if you have recommendations. So we know that, there's going to be pressing needs. They're talking about new fire stations and things like that. So community facilities always kind of get the back burner. And there are funds sort of floating around. There's $100,000 on the master plan implementation, which I don't think that should be even in there anymore because the master plan is only now the projects that we've pulled out of it or the projects that we want to do. So I think we need to do a better job of really listing the community type of projects that we're involved in. And then, wait, I'm supposed to be just asking questions. I'm sorry.
Can I just try to answer that? I think that may
sorry.
be a labeling issue because I think the intent was we don't know which projects from the master plan we want to actually implement. And so it's a placeholder essentially said, we're going to do some work on implementing the actual projects in the master plan, whatever those may be at this point in time. So
Okay, and as we move into real projects, then those become the budget items under the capital.
Correct. They'll move down into an actual project, whatever that may be. And you could foresee maybe 1 year you want to sort of save the 200,000 for over 2 years, it becomes 400,000, that sort of thing.
Okay, so for example, in the non-capital community expenditures, there's 950,000 for 2024, 25, and it drops down to 200,000 in 25, 26. And I'm just wondering if there is a way to really get more aggressive with making investments in the future for the community and maybe make those funds conditional. If there's an emergency, if we need them for other uses, they may go. But unless we start saving ahead for community facilities, they're never going to happen. They're never going to rise to the top. So it's a broad question, and I'm just wondering if we can start, a little bit more strategic conversation about how do we plan for investments that we know we're going to want to make or that we think the community wants us to make.
Yes, and I think one of the ways that we do that, and we've done that in the past several years, is through socking money away in the town capital projects fund. And so that is what, ultimately we use through working with the finance committee and working with the council. It's the way that we paid for half of this building, and so we have, as Chris has talked about, Chris has put in about $1 million each year and transfers out into that fund. And then we will have another conversation if we're lucky enough to have an ending balance from this fiscal year. We'll do the same thing where we come back to the council mid-year budget and have a discussion of how we, do we want to build that up even more to start to plan ahead? We've talked about this at our strategic planning workshops. There's a whole host of capital projects that certainly are out there. It's prioritizing which ones get done and when, and which ones are first. That's the big conversation we've had is around the climate adaptation projects and how we're gonna, we know those are big dollar amounts. There's other needs as well.
Yeah, so maybe a way to look at the budget would be to have, upcoming projects, everything, the berm, everything from the park, all the things that are in the works with numbers attached to them.
That's the 2-year capital budget has pretty much line items for the next 2 years. We just don't have beyond that. Yeah.
Okay. Then hang on just a second. I think I have one more question. So yeah, I'm confused because at one point you showed that Parks and Recreation had a $623,000 surplus this year. So how did that become a deficit?
Again, Mayor, this year it appears that they went gangbusters with sports registrations, and
Maybe due to the quality of our playing fields. Was this mostly soccer, I assume? It looks like, I know there's hundreds of soccer players down there now. Okay.
it looks like a lot. And again, the recreation director wasn't really willing to commit to that same level in the upcoming years.
Okay, so I get that, but so you're projecting a deficit, but we don't have one yet.
Yes, exactly. So if the registrations continue at the current level within Parks and Rec, those programs can be, childcare, sports. They can be wildly, as many coaches you could put out, you could fill those teams, and as many classrooms and teachers. A lot of communities would, are desperate for childcare. If you could put them in classrooms, you could fill them.
Right. We do know that the County Department of Education is trying to push our school district to offer a transitional kindergarten program. We are the only district in Marin that doesn't. So we could be partnering with them. And if we initiated that, maybe that could get the school district off where they are now, which is saying they can't afford to do it. So if there's an issue, I don't know, it's a whole different subject.
I just wanted one point of clarification. I think this actually, after this fiscal year, 24-25, we're actually projecting a surplus, or that will start the next fiscal year with an actual positive balance. And then we're projecting over the next 2 fiscal years that the expenses will outpace the revenues. And so you start to see a negative balance into the forthcoming years. So I just wanted to.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have one more question, and I think this is probably going to be Adam's. So the assistance money that we had for housing that's now sitting there and we don't need it anymore, we know how desperate the needs are for our scholarship fund. And I know that's why Patty is here tonight, because we know that regular adults, even if they really need help, they only get $100 a year maximum from the scholarship fund. And it just seems like, is it possible to just say, okay, that assistance money, let's turn it into assistance money in another way? And let's be generous in supporting the underserved of our community by being more generous. To me, our scholarship program is really kind of parsimonious.
Yeah, and that
If
fund,
that's the right
I think that specific fund really had, it was like, I think $6,000 to
It's got 40
$8,000.
grand in it or something.
No, okay.
These are funds that you're going to they're going to the Lions Club and asking them to provide funds to help kids have after school care. I mean,
We're happy to bring back
it feels awkward.
Sure. And we're, at some point, like, we've had these conversations in the past, and I think it's best to have these conversations with our Park and Rec director and talk about, the fees and the programs and the different things they're offering, and then get direction from the council in terms of how much to subsidize those.
Okay, we can wait and have that later. But from a budget question, can we please have a category called charitable contributions? Cities are allowed to do that, Okay, just my last question. So what's yours?
Well, in terms of setting aside money, we just set up a reserve. An example might be if they don't rebuild the overpass for a few years, have a reserve for new overpass and just get in the habit of doing that, and then maybe, start setting up a reserve for a new fire police station or whatever, and just,
Chris, we've been talking over the last couple of weeks, and that was one of your suggestions, that we actually create a fund for capital projects and move some of the capital budget into an actual fund.
And it doesn't mean you can't reassign those funds if you need them for other things.
That is to the council's discretion. Every dollar in here
So let's,
really comes back to.
and the other
It's in
thing
the future.
is the Affordable Housing Fund. I don't expect you to answer this. If someone could send me a memo saying, this is what we can use it for, this is what we cannot use it for. Because, I vaguely recall from several meetings ago that it was sort of like, yeah, you can use it for housing, but it has to be for the company that gave you the employees of the company that gave you the money. And I'm going, no, that doesn't make any sense. Right?
will you be willing to look into that and see?
We have an ordinance and a policy
I'm
that
asking
is
about
very
it,
explicit
just-
about what it can be used for.
That's when we were talking about town employee housing. And so, anyway.
Okay, so with that, if there are no more questions from council, we'll open it up to the public. If you have some comments, please go to the microphone. Thank you, Patty, for being here.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chris, for the pie charts. Very helpful. I've always wished that could be visible that way. So that's great.
That was
Something
Councilman
that
Cassis's recommendation.
Fred and I think alike. One thing I had worked with Daria about 3 or 4 years ago is there's a line in the STO expenditures called youth and senior programs, which burns me every time I see it because there's a vast difference in funding for youth programs and senior programs. And Daria said, I will split it out next year. And the following year, she did split it out. And now it got back together again. So could you please address that? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I think seniors win this year in terms of city investment, so we should put those numbers together for you too.
And we do split it out in the sales tax report. It's split into different categories.
Okay, are there any other comments from here in the building and anybody online? If not,
No hands raised from attendees online, and we also did not receive any emailed public comment for this item.
okay. And so with that, we'll come back to the council for comments. And do we need a motion to approve, or is it just to hear it? Okay, awesome. Go Fred.
Okay, thanks. I want to thank Chris and all your work on this, even though I know you've only been here a month. And just for full disclosure, Chris, myself, Adam met today for about an hour and a half going through the budget, different line items, formatting everything. So I really appreciate it. I think it added a lot of value for everybody involved. So I really appreciate that. From just an overall budget standpoint, I think we're very fortunate. When I read about other towns where they're trying to cut back, they're just worried about decrease in sales tax. They're trying to tighten up their budgets. Not that we're going crazy, but we're just fortunate that we can still complete a number of projects around town that are beneficial to our residents. I think we're also fortunate that for past councils and even with councils in the last 5 or 6 years, we've built up reserves. And I think that's helped a lot because that's adding to financial sustainability in the long term. So I think all that, it's all good. Given that, I still think we need to be diligent, wrong word, on the budget, just from a cost standpoint and a revenue standpoint, especially. I know you did a lot of work with HDL on the sales tax. I'm still worried about it. It's just because of the economic environment and political environment to a certain degree we're in. But I'm just a little bit worried about that. I think there's a lot more work to do on the park and rec part of it. I am concerned when I see that, 25, 26, we're running a $300 some odd thousand deficit. And then the following year, it jumps up to 7, it more than doubles. And I think you're on top of that because you're a background and working with Tim. So I think you can come back to us with recommendations. And so that may just be a philosophical conversation on where the council wants to go as far as pricing on programming versus how much are we going to subsidize those programs back to residents. I do have a couple of asks. On the council discretionary budget, I think we're at 57,000. I would like to see that up to 67,000. And I'm bringing this up because I think 25,000 off the top is going to the chamber in the next fiscal year. So right there, we almost lose half of that fund. And I don't know if the chamber's going to come back in January or next year with another ask. So I'm just trying to build a little bit of cushion. And I should say it's only 10 grand cushion. And the other thing is on wildfire mitigation. I think we're at 250,000. 4 or 5 years ago, I think we're at over 400,000. I'd like to see that up to 300,000, an additional 50,000 this fiscal year and the next fiscal year. I just think that that ties back to public safety, and the more we can do to mitigate, wildfire, the vegetation management, I just think we need to start going more that direction. I'm sorry. And then the other thing also is I do appreciate you going to a 2-year budget. I know that's been an ask of mine for a little while now. So I think that'll cut down on some of these budgets coming back to us every year. And I know you will come back to us with updates. And just one last ask. Sometimes in the staff reports, I've seen where the fiscal impact statement, it's either lacking some information or sometimes I've even seen where it's been incorrect. What I would like to see is that on staff reports, if there's a fiscal impact, that there's a statement in there saying the director of finance has reviewed and approved that, and that there's sufficient detail in there so we know where the money's coming from. I think if you do that, then we have the comfort level that we know that's in the budget and it's being covered. That's it. Thanks. And again, great job.
Oh, sorry. Eli.
Yeah, no, I would second a lot of those comments. We are fortunate to be in the position that we're in Corte Madera, and a lot of that I think is because of the hard work that this council and previous councils have put in to stabilize the town's finances and try and set ourselves up for success in the future. We've been through some tough times in Corte Madera, and I think we learned the hard way what can happen if you do not plan for the worst. So I'm glad to see that we continue to be in a strong position. I agree, though. I think the broader economic picture on the horizon is cause for concern, or at the very least pause. I think it should give us all pause. And I've been heartened to see that come up in some of our recent discussions at the council here, where we've discussed projects or expenditures, and we've either hit pause or we've just thought about it a little bit more rigorously to make sure that we feel that this is the best use of funds, given the uncertainty that we're facing. So, I would just say that I think, the revenue numbers that are presented certainly show us. I mean, I think it was called out at one point in the staff report that what we're looking at just straight up is revenues are not rising as fast as inflation is. And so that's absolutely going to be something that we'll have to keep an eye on to make sure it doesn't become a threat to the town's financial position. But in the meantime, I'm very grateful to you and your team and all the town leadership for preparing this very thoughtful budget. So thank you.
Jim, you got anything to add?
No, it's a very good job, very good report.
Hey, and
We just have to implement.
I haven't forgotten Rosa. Don't worry. We can't forget Rosa. I like your turquoise walls, Rosa. Okay.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the report. It's great to have the 2 years and then further out, because it gives us a place to kind of, compare what discretionary things we are planning to do that are, outside of safety and, outside of just, good maintenance of the town. So like everyone has said before, there's a lot of concern about what's on the horizon. And this gives us a framework for thinking about the kind of businesses that we promote, the kind of businesses that can bring in revenue. And so I appreciate having this level of detail, and I hope that the other points that we've given about greater deep detail and, sort of parsing out things even more, I think would be really helpful for us. And it sounds like you are the person for the job. So thank you.
Okay, I guess that comes to me. So I agree with everybody that we should definitely be prepared for the worst. But we also need to plan for the best. I happen to be a real idealist, and I think Corte Madera is on the verge of great things. I think our new overcrossing, if it happens, it's still scheduled to happen, and the development that's going to come as a result of that, and how strong our planning department is. We've got so many things going for us. I want to see our budget in a plan to invest, with the caveat that if the money is needed to protect the east side from flood control, it will go there first. But let's plan for the best. So it's going to cost a lot of money to do what people want to do in Menke Park, and to fix up the community center, and to then do something with Park Madera Center. How is that going to become a campus? It's actually zoned as parkland. So all of those things are going to cost money. We know that. And we also know that it's a lot harder to raise money for nice things than it is for police and fire, because people put public safety first. And so do I. But it doesn't mean that we don't plan to do the bigger things. So let's get them going. The whole economic development idea that Adam and I have talked about, with really looking at this whole highway corridor from Macy's all the way down to the new the Joanne Fabrics, that whole area, and really empowering our community development department by hiring consultants who can come in and help us present our vision of what we want from developers, so that when a developer comes to town and wants to build something, we got something really nice to hand them that says, here's what we're looking for. A little like we did with the hotel project, when we said, hey, you give us great architecture, environmental leadership, and community amenities, we'll give you extra FAR. I mean, that was the greatest plan that will never happen. It's really a sad, sad thing. But I just want us to, in the budget, plan for the best. And if we don't have the bandwidth to do it, then let's make a budget for consultants, for professional assistance. Because if you look at what's happening in Larkspur right now, those houses are selling for $2,000 a square foot. And you know why? It's because it's got a cute downtown, and everybody wants to walk to a cute downtown. We're inches away from really gaining a lot more from our property tax base. And everything we do out there by the highway to make that nicer, with more hanging baskets or whatever we're going to do out there, better bike paths, all of those soft investments, that's why people will come spend their money in Corte Madera. And that's why we can guarantee that if anybody's going to do well with sales taxes, it's going to be Corte Madera, because we're going to have, and we already are, the best place to shop in Marin County. So we need to invest in these things and not cower back and say, hunker down because it could get bad. I agree. It could get really bad. North Korea could bomb us. I mean, there's all kinds of bad things that could happen, but we got to plan for the best. So that's my speech, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you guys for being here tonight. And thank you, all of you. And mostly, welcome. I am so glad you have a Parks and Recreation background, because Parks and Recreation and community are they're like Siamese twins, and I really want to see those things grow in our town. And I think, thank you so much for all your work. And I like the name Shoreline for that parking lot. I think that's your first job. You just named that because it's a special event center. The car shows there, they do movies. We did a circus. We're talking about an ice skating rink.
We used to set off fireworks there until it burnt down the
And we
park.
could do that again. We could do that again. They only need $450,000 to put in sufficient electrical service so that we could have an ice skating rink there every January and February. So it's only $450,000. Okay, yes, I'm going to stop now. Boy, this is kind of
We'll
fun,
have a
actually.
work plan discussion later on.
Okay, yes, I know. Thank you so much. And so we will move on now to the next item on the agenda, which is the business item 6A. Now, these are all three things we have spoken about previously. I was surprised not to see them on the consent calendar. Do you want me to read the whole description? Is that required by law that I do that? Consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 2425 approving the classification of a deputy district manager with a salary range of X to Y, so forth, so on. I don't need to read the whole thing, do I? So
we're good.
recommendation is that we adopt the resolutions as requested. Can we hear a staff report?
Yeah, I'll start this off, and
He was here.
this is the one, if you recall, one of the comments we got at the first reading of this was to try to combine it into one staff report. We did that, but we still have two resolutions. So there's two motions that we're going to be asking you to make at the end of this. But we did try to combine, there's obviously, the first resolution relates to the approval of two new job classifications, the deputy district manager in the Public Works Department with a salary range of $12,166 to $14,788 per month. I want to note right now, those are different numbers than what we had basically put in the last title of the agenda. We were using previously higher numbers, which were basically assuming fiscal year 25, 26 numbers with a 3% COLA. So what we want to do is be consistent, and these are the numbers as of today that the council will be approving in fiscal year 24, 25.
Quick clarification, Deputy District Manager of Public Works or of the Sanitary District?
It's not specified, but it is 90% of the work in the job description is going to be the Sanitary District number 2.
Okay. Okay, but it's sort of in both.
It's district. I mean,
It's
so
in both.
it's district. So it's Sanitary District Manager. There's a small percentage, if needed, that the position and the classification can do public works related activities as well, project management. The second motion we're requesting the council approve resolution number 25/2025, and that's approving the principal planner classification, which would be a new job position as well. Salary range of $10,840 to $13,176 per month, and the revisions to the other classifications within the planner series: assistant planner, associate planner, and senior planner. With respect to those numbers, I just want to note we had a relatively minor correction to make on the salary schedule there as well. And it resulted in a slight increase, I think about $60 to the top step of $13,176. And with the associate planner, there was a $1 change we made, which was a correction just for rounding purposes. So it now is the top step is at $10,391 per month. Those I just wanted to, that's in the staff report at the end of, or sort of the middle of page 2, going through the clarifications there. We also included at the end in the attachments, Councilmember Andrews, I think you requested seeing the positions and the classifications with the salaries in sort of the schedule of the overall mid-managers, professional technical classifications. We have that, but also with respect to within each department, the Public Works Department and the Community Development Department, how those salaries sort of slot in, those positions slot in within the overall salary range. So we included those in attachment. Let's see, what attachment was that? One of the attachments in there, I'll just say it's thank you. It's attachment 3. So with that, I think we're happy to answer any questions. Amy's here as well if you have further questions on this item. But we're looking for council to make a motion to approve the 2 resolutions in your staff report. Thank you.
Questions, anybody?
Not certain whether it's a comment or a question. We will probably see a CalPERS salary schedule in the not too distant future?
July 1st, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Rosa, do you have any questions?
No, I do not.
And neither do I. I'm excited that these positions are being created. I think they sound like good ideas. I will entertain two motions. Do we need two separate motions? One motion? Public comment. Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the public who would like to comment on this matter? I kind of knew there wasn't, but is there anybody online?
No hands raised from attendees online and no emailed public comment for
Okay.
this item.
So I'm happy to move adoption of resolutions number 24, 2025 and 25, 2025. And I also just want to thank Adam. I feel like this was a perfect example of the follow through that is being demonstrated when we have requests or direction that comes up in the course of discussion on an agenda item. My experience has certainly been that you guys are very good about bringing back additional information as requested at future readings, and I just wanted to call that out and say thank you.
Second.
Okay, did we get a second? Okay.
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to 6B, consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 26, 2025, approving revisions to the benefits of confidential professional, technical, and mid-management employees regarding reimbursable expenses for electric vehicle charging, and resolution 2725, approving revisions to the benefits of department head employees to standardized provisions for reimbursable expenses, including expenses for EV charging. This was a is a two-meeting item, which was originally introduced on June 3rd. Recommendations are that we adopt as requested. Does anyone on the council have any questions? Does anyone in the room have any comments? I'll return it. Oh, and online?
No hands raised from attendees online, no emailed public comment either.
Okay, return it to council for comments and or a motion.
Happy to move adoption of resolutions number 26, 2025 and 27, 2025.
I'll second.
We can do A's and nays if you want.
I think unfortunately we can't because we have
Okay.
an attendee,
Oh,
we
that's
have
right.
Vice
Okay,
Mayor Thomas.
got
That's
it.
the rule. Look at this.
So, we will, we'll do the roll call.
Buddy.
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Ravazio.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries.
that was impressive.
She's
I like
gonna
that.
be like our assistant
I will-
legal.
I will thank the Marin Emergency Radio Authority for my knowledge on
Good.
the roll call process.
Okay, so we will move on to 6C, which is consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 2625, approving revisions to the existing memorandum of understanding between SEIU 1021 and the town of Corte Madera regarding educational reimbursements and professional development incentive premium pay for the field supervisor position. To meeting item, a meeting item adopted June 3rd. Recommendation is that we adopt as requested. Are there any questions from council? I have just one question. Is this something that's an added benefit? And if so, is it something that could be applied to all employees? Why are we just applying it to just this one
This was an oversight from when we created the field supervisor position. It's a maintenance position. So when we negotiated the new salary, salary and benefit agreement with SEIU employees,
So it's just catching them up with the others.
it is. And it's also, there's technical skills that I think encourage growth within
Great.
the maintenance team. So
Okay, do I have anybody in the public with a comment? Anybody online with a comment?
No hands raised from attendees online and no emailed public comment either.
Any comment from council?
I can make the motion to approve resolution 28/2025.
And a second from Jim?
Councilmember Andrews,
Yes.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Casissa.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Yes.
Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, we will come to the council reports, and as always, love to hear a nice, long, detailed report from our town manager.
Oh, man. Well, you sort of drained the well tonight. I don't know. I don't have a lot to report on. I will say, just related to the one item tonight, we do intend to sort of track expenses related to the charging benefits, both comparing once it goes into effect next year, we'll look at those benefits and see how much was actually used for that versus this fiscal year we'll use as a baseline. So I just wanted to make clear that we didn't forget that comment, and we're going to follow up on that, but we just don't have the full picture yet. I think maybe what I'll do is I'll save my report for the end of the sanitary district meeting and give it to you then. So.
Any, Fred?
Yeah, I just have a couple of things on 6/11. Pat, myself, and Adam met at our, I want to say, new intergenerational center, even though I don't think we signed the lease yet. We did get the donation agreement signed, so kudos to everybody involved with that. That was a little bit of a process. But the three of us actually met with a woman that we're looking at contracting with to help do design work in there. So she went through the place with us. We had comments, suggestions. She's going to kind of help prioritize, all knowing that we have to keep within a certain budget. And then on 6/13 last Friday, Rosa and myself, we attended the Marin County Regional Fire Academy graduation. We have two new firefighter paramedics with Central Marin Fire, and I haven't attended it before. I don't think Rosa did either. It was kind of neat. There's probably about 7 or 8 firefighters from Southern Marin Fire against Central Marin Fire in the county. A ton of people there. It was very family oriented. It was just, I thought overall it was a great event. And then after, Rose and I were lucky enough, because Chief Weber from the county and then Chief Martin from Central Marin, he gave us a tour of their dispatch center, their emergency services center, which is pretty impressive also. So yeah, and that's all I have. Thanks.
Eli or Jim?
For once, I only have one thing. On June 10th, I attended a Central Marin Sanitation Agency board meeting.
And Miss Rosa.
Well, Fred just gave you the skinny on what I did. I think that the graduation ceremony and the pinning was just amazing. And if you have not had a tour of the county fire headquarters, I highly recommend doing it. It's incredibly impressive. It's something, their control room is something between, you know, Star Wars and Mission Impossible. It's so high tech and so polished and excellent. And I'm, you know, feeling very, very safe living in Marin.
Thank you. So up to me, just a couple of things, if I may. I did meet with the Corte Madera Community Foundation and got kind of grilled at length about plans to refinish. They'd like to see the round concrete tables at Town Park Plaza refinished. If you've looked at them, they're kind of all beat up now and got a lot of wear and tear. And a long ago Parks and Recreation effort wanted to move those tables outside of the shade structure and then put a big long community table and some other little four tops under the shade structure. And the Community Foundation has said it's fine for us to do that if we refinish the concrete tables. So I've sent the bid to Adam. It's like $7,000. They'll be really nice. You know, the finish they put on garage floors when you know, the real high level finish, they actually do that for tables and chairs as well. So it will be it'll be better for germs too. You know, the concrete kind of gets cut open and it seems kind of grungy. So anyway, that's going on. I'm going to be angling for money somehow. I guess it's got to come in a staff report to council. There is an effort, a lady who was here tonight wanted to talk about signs for Menke Park. She wants signs for the stores on First Street, which are not, you know, they're tucked away back there. She just wants one of those little directional signs. And I found out that she actually came to the town council some 15 years ago because the merchants all wanted this sign and the council said no to them. And I cannot for the life of me figure out why they would have said no to it. The merchants were going to pay for it. It wasn't going to be anything that the town had to pay for. So I've encouraged her to come back at us again and see if we can't streamline a project to get a new sign for them in Menke Park. And boy, there's lots more, but I'm not going to go into it except to say, come to the parade. And if you know anybody, cute kids, musicians, dancers, belly dancers, crazy people, encourage them to be in the parade this year. It's looking good. We have some good bands and some good bones, but we need more fun youth, people with dogs. You know, the dog walkers here you could put 100 dogs out there and people would love it. Anyway, and if you have ideas, contact Julie Kritzberger at the chamber, as you know. So that's the end of my report. And I think that means we can.
If I can, Mayor, just a couple that I think are worth mentioning. We have received some concerns and complaints about the state of the property at 41 Tamil Vista Boulevard, just in terms of its.
What property is this?
41 Tamil Vista Boulevard. This is the old movie theater.
Oh, thank you.
And so, we've been working really hard with the property owner to try to get them to maintain it and clean it up. We just recently it's not been easy, but we're staying on top of them. They recently just did weed clearing, cleaning up the graffiti, things like that. This is a private property. And so it's really their responsibility. We've offered, I've even reached out and said, look, if you want to hire us to go and do this, if you're an absentee landlord, if you're out of the state, which I understand they are, we're happy to send you a bill. So we're doing everything we can to sort of help them maintain. And if it, I just I'm not going to say there are other things we could do potentially down the road if it's really gets to be a reoccurring problem, and just want to let residents and neighbors know that we're on top of that. Jim, sorry, did you want to?
But that belonged to Scandinavian. They've got a store up in.
Yeah, but they moved the headquarters out.
Okay.
The old guy who had the dream of it being a store moved on to back to Scandinavia. His family's in Denver or somewhere in Colorado.
The other thing just to note is that, obviously there were many protests over the weekend that occurred. I think the organizers were smart and actually making many dispersed protests. At Corte Madera, we did have protests here, I understand, but it was very peaceful and contained on the sidewalks and in proper locations, and that seems to be what has happened throughout a lot of the different areas. So,
Adam, those are being run by Anita Bach, who lives
Yes.
up on Christmas Tree Hill, and she is perfect. She makes everybody be calm and behave and make sure they're following safety guidelines. So they've done a good job. I've kind of checked. I didn't go this
I
time,
think,
but I kind of checked it out.
our
and they're-
concern in talking to Chief Norton, the concern is always, you don't know
Safety.
who's going to attend. It can draw people from out of the area. And so I think also that strategy, though, is helpful in not attracting individuals who want to just be agitators. But she has been very helpful in sort of alerting us when the protests are happening, how they're organizing, and also communicating with CMPA on that. And the last thing on CMPA, that we have 5 new officers. We've put out some notifications in our newsletter and tried to, just publicize. We're really excited to have new officers out there in the field, and they're getting proper training, and my understanding is they're doing great. So welcome them if you see them out there in the community.
I would love to give them a little extra money to hire a good photographer so that you can post, smiling, happy pictures of the guys and not so much looking like.
Can I ask one question on one piece of that report? Because I was walking past 41 Tamil Vista last week when I saw them out there cleaning up the weeds, which I really appreciated. But it did make me wonder, do we have the ability to fine property owners for blight or anything like that?
It's maintenance. And so that was essentially how we got them to start to be responsive on those issues. So that is something, there is a nuisance ordinance that at some point, this is what I was referring to, if things got really at a point where we were concerned about public safety and health, and
Right.
could come to the council and the council could declare a nuisance, and then we would have the ability to sort of
Got it.
go on and.
Thank you. Because I know that, this seems to be a potentially growing issue with now we've got Macy's is empty, Joann Fabrics is empty, and it feels like the large vacant commercial properties are accumulating, and we want to make sure that they're not saddling the community with blight.
In our strategies is really trying to partner with the owners. And most of the time we get really good response, but yes. And I'm certainly with Macy's, I think Mace Rich.
Yes,
Fortunately, they're
absolutely.
going to be
They're on top.
more than we are.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess that's the conclusion of the council reports, unless anybody has any other questions of Adam. Rosa, did you reported in? Yeah, everybody's.
I did. Mhm.
I'm sorry.
No, I just said, yes, I reported in.
Anything? Yeah. Okay, so number 8 is discussion of the draft agenda. Does anyone have any comments on the agenda? All right, and with that, we will adjourn and reconvene as the sanitary district. Okay, and we are now the sanitary district board, and I hereby call this meeting to order. And we do have an announcement that Rosa Thomas, our vice president of the board, is calling in by Zoom, and she's going to tell us why.
I am calling in by Zoom because I have a illness that is contagious. And so to keep everyone safe, I am calling in.
Thank you very much. Okay, so can we have a roll call, please?
Council, Board Member Andrews,
Yes?
Board Member Beckman.
Here.
Board Member Casissa.
Here.
Vice President Thomas.
Yes.
President Ravazio.
Here.
And just to clarify, that was a motion to approve remote attendance by council member.
Oh, thank you. That
Thomas.
was not roll call. Well, actually, that was roll
That
call.
was, but we never said what the vote was for. So I'm just clarifying the vote was to approve
That Rosa is here.
Commissioner Thomas's attendance remotely for just cause.
Okay, great. So that brings us to open time for public comment. I do not see anyone in the audience to comment. So is there anyone online who would like to comment in their allowable public time?
No hands raised from attendees online and no emailed public comment for open time.
Okay, and we don't have any presentations tonight, and there is just one item on the consent calendar, which is approval of the minutes. Do I hear a need for anyone to pull that off the consent calendar, or can we proceed? Okay, so is there a motion for the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, Board Member Andrews,
Yes?
Board Member Beckman.
Yes.
Board Member Casissa.
Yes.
Vice President Thomas.
Yes.
President Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, next up, we do have a public hearing to review the proposed sanitary district number 2 operating budget for fiscal years 25-26 and 26-27 and provide direction to staff as appropriate. This is a 2-meeting item, and this is the first appearance of Chris and Fernanda. Hi, Fernanda. So Adam, do you want to kick this off or?
Yeah, I'll do just very quickly. And I just, in addition to thanking Chris on this, also want to thank Fernanda for her input. Of course, Fernanda's really stepping up with the absence of both RJ and Chris Good this month, and just appreciate her input on the budget this year. I do want to note we have talked a lot about the capital needs of the sanitary sewer district. You can see in this budget really just the significant amount of capital needs and projects that are out there over the next couple of years. I think the town, the board and sanitary district number 2 has come to the council, to the board in the last year and a half to not only explain the need through the master planning process, but also devise a funding strategy through the issuance of certificates of participation, which are going to help to pay for this. You'll see in the second year of this budget, there's another tranche, which we talked about probably being needed in 26, 27 to fund into the future some of the larger capital projects, including the parallel, I think it's called the parallel force main. Is that right, Fernanda? On the east side, which really is a significant project. And so in addition, what all of this is about is really now that there are new fees were approved. This is about delivering for the ratepayers, the capital projects, and being efficient and effective in doing so and getting these done quickly because the costs, as we know, just escalate in the future. And so that also includes additional maintenance and operations. And one note, the council in its meeting approved a deputy district manager position. I think that was an important step to sort of elevate the needs from a staffing perspective. And while we didn't include any other staffing proposals in the town council budget, I just want to note, and it's in the staff report, that's something we're going to be evaluating over the course of the next year from a board perspective is, do we need additional maintenance staff and potentially other staff as we consider how to deliver on all the needs of the sanitary district and the capital expenses and the maintenance and operations. So that's an overview. I'm going to let Chris get into the budget, and Fernanda's here as well to answer questions for you. So thank you for that opportunity to provide an introduction.
Good evening. Good evening again, board members. So here we're going to present Sanitary District Number 2 budget. First, we'll start with a very high level look at revenues. Again, projecting fairly conservatively on both the property tax and other property related taxes. The sewer district user charges, that comes directly from the fee study that was just done. And again, interest earnings are just being estimated, again, fairly conservatively, but we have no idea what interest rates are going to do over the next year. So, and then I just want to very clearly point out, even though this is revenues, I wanted to show inflows and keep this as simple as possible by including the certificates of participation in the current fiscal year estimated actuals. And also, as the town manager pointed out, in year 2 of this budget anticipates additional debt being issued to complete the capital projects that are envisioned in this budget and capital plan. Next slide, please. And again, just wanted to show real broadly using this pie chart, just kind of where the revenues come from, as you'd expect, and as I would expect in a utility like this. You'd see a lot of the revenue coming from property tax and then user fees, of course. There are a lot more slices to this pie than are really even displayed here. There are a lot more zeros. But I tried to bring it down a little bit so it was readable. Next slide, please. And then again here, we're just projecting a very conservative, estimate of property related taxes. Again, we're anticipating the recent rate study to bring in the fees that are displayed here. And again, we're anticipating capital or debt infusion to help fund some of the capital projects. Next slide, please. And again, very high level operating expenses. Tried to summarize as much as I could here. We're not projecting a lot of increases internally. Some of the bigger increases are really coming from the CMSA, and Fernanda can talk a little bit more about some of those changes that are expected there. Another item that's fairly large in this, and you'd expect to see this in such a capital intensive utility, is that large depreciation expense. Again, as we invest more in capital, we probably see that go up. But that's a real indicator of just how much underlying capital in the in the use of that capital over time. Next slide, please. And again, here I tried to display just kind of a breakout of the expenses incurred by the district. Again, there are a lot more slices to this pie that are being displayed here. They really kind of come up less than 1%, but I just wanted to show the sewer treatment disposal is one very large piece of this pie, about a quarter of it. Again, depreciation expense, about a quarter of the pie. And then the town lends services and people to the district so that it can perform the maintenance and other functions required by the district. And we've consulted with each other several times to make sure we've got this dialed in exactly right. And as the town manager alluded to earlier, there may be additional staff needed to maintain the facilities at the level required by the board and the community. Next slide, please. So here, the largest piece of this budget is really the capital project plan. And I've tried, again, just like the other funds in the town budget, I've tried to show how the fund balance will perform over time. You can see we're really starting with about 19 million in the fund balance, but through revenues minus expenses, and then really the majority in these capital projects, how that fund balance behaves over time. We're really envisioning spending about 21 million in capital projects over the 2 years of this plan. So, Fernanda will be able to speak much more detail about any of those projects. Next slide, please. So, and I'm going to let Fernanda take it from here and talk about the projects. And
good evening, President Ravazio and board members. I think you're going to be seeing me more often here. So this project is the Corte Madera meter vault and valve rehabilitation. Is on the freeway, under the freeway, close to Lexburg Landing. We have our meter, our largest flow meter used to be there and broke and doesn't exist anymore. And the valves need to be replaced, and is a delicate location next to the bay and with a connection with a 65-inch first main from Ross Valley. So we have been coordinating with Ross Valley and CMSA to replace a major isolation valve. It requires a lot of intense coordination, regulatory permitting as well, including environment. So it's a very delicate project. And where the flow meter used to be, we're going to remove that and put a bigger, large, because it used to have a reducer. We're going to put a sleeve, then it's going to go through the same diameter there and have the valves, then we can isolate our system from Ross Valley for minutes. So that's the goal. Yeah, next slide, please. And we're under construction at the moment on our largest pump station, the Paradise Pump Station. We are doing major upgrades in pumping, electrical, civil, and operation system to improve safety and reliability. Right now, we are on bypass on the stations, and the work should be complete by the winter. The new VFGs arrived. They're drilling the wet well to install the new pumps. So a lot of construction happening there. If anyone is interested to see, I'm happy to take for a tour. Next. This is the Paradise First Main Bypass project. Then we're gonna need the funds in the next year. Is constituting in 4,800 feet of new ATP line to improve redundancy, capacity, and operational flexibility during maintenance. So in the winter, we can use the bypass and maintain the valves on the large force main. And then switch back. And also if something goes wrong, is a redundant pump pipeline, and then it can storage a lot of flow from Paradise Pump Station to CMSA. Okay. You guys have any questions, concerns?
Okay, thank you for the presentation. So is that the budget and sort of the action items as well? So are there questions from the council?
This one's easier than the last one.
I'm sorry, not the council, the board. Are there any questions from the board? No questions at all?
I have a general question. I vaguely recall from a few months ago that there was a problem with some buildings on the east side where they were going to relay the main sewer main so that there could be gravity flow from the building as opposed to. So is that as background? If you look at what's going on down at the end of Tamil Vista, okay, where we're going to put in a bunch of big buildings. Is the sewer main sufficiently sunk that you can get gravity feed from those buildings, or are we going to have to worry about pumps there? And I assume you probably don't know because nobody sent the plans to you yet, so.
Oh, I do know. We do have the sewer is pretty deep there, so they're gonna be able to be gravity.
Good.
Because the line that goes from Redwood High School goes between the courtyard and MMWG. There's super deep pipes that go straight to our Pfeiffer pump station, and Luck drives come in the middle to go. So there is a easement on that property where our sewer is. And you're
Okay.
gonna be able to connect there.
Okay, good. Thank you.
This is a woman who knows her pipes. I'm really enjoying this. Could you go to the slide that showed sort of what was going on right now? Because there was one image that I really would like to see in person because I had no idea that our flood control work was so extensive. Is it possible to go back to the slide that had all the photographs on it? Yeah. So that bottom image with the machines, is that part of Corte Madera's?
This is our largest sanitary
right
sewer
here.
pump station.
That is a place that exists. Where is that?
Is on Paradise Drive, between Paradise Drive and San Clemente, you know, Amy, the restaurant is.
Oh, yeah.
There's a private alley coming from.
I'm sorry.
Could I get a
Pat-
tour of that sometime?
Yes.
Okay.
Pat, do you know where Trex Bike is on
Yes.
Paradise?
Yeah.
If you went through Trex Bikes, there's an alley on the back side there. It's on that back alley.
I
Sorry.
can't believe I had no idea that this, I'm like, what the heck is that? It
I
looks
walk past it
massive.
all the time.
Yeah, that's a
Well,
large pump station.
I'm so glad you are here to know what the heck is going on. Okay, so do we need a motion here? Anything? There's no one in the audience. Is there anybody online? I'm sorry, still taking questions. Yes. Oh, Rosa, did you have questions? Yeah, I thought she already said. And anyone else here? I just want to say welcome, Fernanda, to explaining things that are going on because I actually understood you and really got it. So it's Buckminster Fuller said once, if you can't explain it to a kindergartner, you don't understand it very well. So I'm not a kindergartner quite, but I really appreciate you using layman's language and terms to make sure that we understand exactly what's happening with these ridiculously complicated systems we have to protect our community. I think the town doesn't know. It'd be nice to do a little PR for you guys. And
Yes, I'm planning to come back in August with a presentation with all the projects that I've done since I started here in 2018 and the goals for the sanitary district. So that's on the agenda.
Awesome.
August.
thank you. Thanks so much. Okay. Good job, Adam. So I think we are, oh, you want me to bring it open for public comment? I kind of just did that, but I'll do it again.
Okay.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment?
We
Spirit
do have
cookies, anybody?
attendees online, but none of them have their hands raised.
Okay.
And we do not have emailed public comment for this item.
Okay, so that means we can bring it to a close. And are we looking for action here? We need an approval.
This is similar to
Adopt the
the town's
resolution.
budget, just direction to staff, and then it'll come back at the next meeting for
Okay.
approval.
Would you like to make a motion?
No motion needed. I just want to thank our staff for preparing this budget. Appreciate it. And for the great presentation tonight.
Thank you all. And does someone have a motion?
Need a motion?
Okay.
No.
And then I have the wrong agenda in my hand.
Next is, we're going to annex something.
Somebody please lend me the agenda. All right, business item 6A is consideration and possible adoption of Resolution 01-2025 consenting to the Tiburon Fire Protection District's petition to the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission, adding 4301 Paradise Drive, Tiburon, with APN numbers as listed, to the Sanitary District Number 2 sphere of influence, and annexing the site to Sanitary District 2 for the purpose of providing wastewater services and authorizing the district manager to negotiate and execute the consent form. So Adam, Fernand?
Good evening again, President Ravazio and board members. Tonight, staff is recommending that the board adopt a resolution 01-2025, which will consent to the Tiburon Fire Protection District petition to Marine LAFC to add Fire Station Number 10, located at 4301 Paradise Drive, into the Sanitary District Number 2 spheres of influence, and annex the site into the Sanitary District Number 2 to allow connection to our public sewer system. The fire department is currently remodeling the station and is seeking to connection to SG2 nearby sewer main, which is closer to their property line than where he is right now connected, and offer a more reliable and efficient system than they're set up right now. They're on a far away from the station. The district has adequate infrastructure and capacity to serve the parcel with no need for capital improvement. All costs associated with the annexation, permits, and connections will be fully borne by the property owner, resulting in no cost to the district. While there is pretty much minimal fiscal impact to us, the property will generate the connection fees and ongoing maintenance related to charges, including permits and inspections. Although the fire station is exempt from property taxes, there is no impact to the district funds. The annexation is categorically exempt under CEQA. So staff recommend adopt the resolution as presented. Let me know if I'm happy to answer any questions. And also, if you look on the screen right now, the one highlight H10 is where the location of the fire station is. So where there's letters and numbers are part on our boundary or very close to our boundary. So Lorena, if you move up a little, we can see the zoom out on the top. A little more to the corner. Like, yes, please. Yes.
So I'm sorry, is this actually moving the fire station into the district, or what is on, oh, sorry,
Yes.
the fire station is what's located at 4301 Paradise
Yes.
Drive. Okay, got that.
We want to annex them. They want to annex them to SG2. And the green line is how they wanted to connect it. They're up in the hill here, so they can go gravity to the main hole down on Paradise Drive.
Are there questions from council?
Is it that station by Trestle? Is it the station by Trestle Glen? I'm trying,
Yeah, it's right at the entry to.
Yes, close to.
the corner one.
So they want to join us. Why? What's their main motivation?
Right now, I think where the location where they are, the closest sewer to go gravity is ours. If not, they need to go farther and maybe continue an ejector system.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, if we approve them, are there any neighboring parcels that will then turn around and say, hey, we want to join you too?
So, under the the Cortese-Knox, Hertzberg Act, all of these things have to go through LAFCO, the Local Agency Formation Commission. And LAFCO, every 5 years, does studies of municipal services and spheres of influence. And so, in order to make a boundary change, you have to apply to LAFCO and they have to approve it, but they come to the agencies first to get their consent. So that's the part of the process we're working on. They have to get our consent and then it will go to LAFCO, which will make the final decision about whether or not to allow this. So no one can, we can not consent. So we do have that option. And I think in this case, we think it's worth it to help our partner public agency. It will save money. I would say it's not zero cost because it doesn't pay for our staff time. So that's something I think we're going to take a look at in the future. Although these annexations don't happen frequently, it's pretty infrequent. But there has been, I know SD2 has worked hard over the last 4 or 5 years to try to ensure that we know all the properties that are in the district to make sure all of the properties are paying. So there have been a little bit of change over districts. Just some of the historic records have not been great. And that's something RJ and his team worked really hard on doing. So yeah, any time a town or a district is going to change any jurisdictional lines, it goes through the LAFCO process.
Right. And so my question is if we approve this and LAFCO goes through, are we picking up any additional parcels?
Yes, the district's boundary will now include this parcel and they will pay sewer fees.
Parcel. Are there additional ones?
No, this is limited to these particular parcels that are part of the application.
Any other questions from council members, board members?
Do we have a motion?
Public comment.
Public comment?
Public comment.
Any public comment in the room? No, anybody online?
No hands raised from attendees online and no emailed public comment for this item.
We'll bring it back to council.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 012025.
Second.
Board Member Andrews,
Yes.
Board Member Beckman.
Yes.
Board Member Casissa.
Yes.
Vice President Thomas.
Yes.
President Ravazio.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries.
Okay, that brings us to, thank you, Eli, for covering. Sorry, it's allergies or something that comes on every once in a while. District manager and board member reports. Do we have a report from the district manager? Anything from our assistant district manager? And then anything from board members? And any discussion number 8 of the draft agenda for upcoming board meetings? And if not, we will adjourn.